Well, hello, everyone. Class is in session. Today, we are joined with Professor Greg Jackson from History That Doesn't Suck. So at least we know class won't suck. Welcome, Professor.
Thank you.
Welcome,
Thank
Professor.
You.
And can we call you just Professor throughout
Professor?
this now? Did Heather set that up?
I mean, Greg is fine, but you are welcome to just professor
Professor
this.
Greg Jackson.
Yes.
I want to call you the Professor.
The Professor. Yeah, it's like Gilligan Island.
Yeah.
You're the Professor. I'm definitely Gilligan.
Oh, I'm super.
Who can I be?
You could be the skipper, Marianne.
I'll be Marianne.
Marianne, you're good,
Marianne.
Marianne.
Is she the redhead?
That's Ginger. You want to be
That is
Ginger?
Ginger.
Ginger. I want to be Ginger.
Oh,
I mean, come on,
think I'm.
Ginger, the redhead. Come on.
That's true.
The
She was
names,
like
they're right there.
That's true.
That's right.
Yeah, I was
Whoops.
right there.
But I definitely am Gilligan, just without the hat. Well, welcome, Professor. We're so glad to have you. Your podcast, History That Doesn't Suck, is the history class that I think we all wish we would have had when we were in school. It's stuff we wish we would have learned and didn't. But now you're taking that to the next level and getting it right in our ears.
Hey, thank you. That is exactly what I try to do with that podcast. So anytime I get that feedback from someone, you're just right in the heart in the best of ways.
Well, good. Absolutely. I was listening to your thing on Gettysburg. We're going to be in Pennsylvania soon, not quite near Gettysburg, but I'm a bit of a Lincoln fan.
Yes, Heather has a huge Abe Lincoln tattoo.
That's one way to put it. It's pretty huge.
Wow.
Well, it's like
When you're in
it's
your
that big.
I lived
it's pretty big.
in Illinois in my 20s and was like, I'm going to get a cool Abe Lincoln tattoo. Overboard.
Yeah, well, I mean, like all cool people in Illinois do. They're just,
Yeah.
yeah, I hear there's an abundance of Abe Lincoln
You're just
tattoos
walking
in
around
Illinois.
the streets
Yeah,
of Chicago
that's-
with your Abe Lincoln tattoo.
The ignorant Texan that's like, how do I fit in with y'all? And they're like, get a huge Abe Lincoln tattoo. And I'm like, I'm on it, guys. I'm doing it. And here we are. So
Hey, I love it. I love it. I'm a big Abe Lincoln fan myself.
Oh,
so.
there you go.
There you go.
I love it.
How did you get into all of this and the podcast and everything?
Man, into the podcast as opposed to history, because those are two
Or
separate
history
things.
first, and then I guess
Sure.
that
I mean,
transitioned.
the short version, history is the one subject that I really just loved as a kid. I was actually not really into school when I was a teenager. And history was the one subject I showed up to actually excited and enjoying. So I knew that if there was a way to make a career out of history,
Yeah.
I
That was
wanted
me,
to do it.
but with theater arts. And look at me
Look
now.
at that.
So-
Nice. You hear
And
me. You
writing.
get it. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
you find what you love early on, and that kind of sticks with you.
As much as you get veered to another
Yeah.
direction, you're like, I'm always going to come back to this. I'm always going to
Yeah.
come back to
Yes.
history.
Yes.
Mhm.
So don't ask me to do calculus. I'm worthless in,
Same.
the hard sciences, but the humanities, history. As for the podcast, 2017, I'm a young professor going through the tenure process and all that jazz. So it's a lot of article writing and going to conferences and all that jazz. And I love that part of academia. It's important to write and interact with your peers. But I really had a sense and a feeling that I wanted to engage more with the public. I feel, my apologies to any academic listening, but we need a little ivory tower-esque. That stereotype is fair.
Right.
And I'm looking at podcasts, and this is with nothing but love and respect from any of my colleagues in the history podcast space, but I'm looking at going like, why are there no professional PhD holding historians doing this? So I was just dumb enough to think, you know what? Yeah, I'm just going to throw that out there. Yeah, I'll step in.
Hard. I was like,
It's
there
true,
should be a
though.
lawyer on this on these true crime podcasts, and I'm a lawyer, and I was like, I'll just start a podcast right now. And then you realize it's not that easy.
It does
Yeah,
take you
and
to the
then
next
suddenly-
level, though. With
Thank
your
you.
knowledge, like Heather's legal knowledge on our show, I feel like sets us apart. And you
Right.
having an actual
100%.
PhD in history is definitely gonna you got a little more. We take what you say a little more seriously than just some influencer
To be
that's
honest.
like, did you guys hear about the Gettysburg Address?
It's 1, 2, 3 Mockingbird, like got that address, and also just having more on the line, right? You're a working professor. You
Mhm.
can't be unethical. You have to. You got a lot more at stake.
100%.
I had a license, yeah.
I've got administrators at my home university, Utah Valley University. They listen to the podcast. I've got colleagues across the nation. I mispronounce a word I get a
yeah.
freaking email,
Yeah.
so
Same.
yeah,
Yeah. Heather once accidentally said Canadians use loonies instead of toonies, and
I was off. And then I also listed all the planets once, and I was like confidently listing them, just completely omitted Neptune. But that wasn't because I'm stupid. It's because I don't recognize Neptune as a planet. And I will see to it that it is removed as a planet. No, I just wanted to cover up and make a
but you
mistake,
did include Pluto, which
I did, which I too. See, we're off the beaten path here. But I hear you though. You're like one slip up with a word, and it's done.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
Oh man.
But yeah, well, and in addition to your history stories that you're telling us, we love that you do a Halloween special once a year.
Thank
and
you. Thank
you got
you.
a Freaky Friday story for us today?
I do have a Freaky Friday story for you.
Oh,
well, we love it because we're going to hear it from you in the way that you normally tell your stories on your podcast.
Yeah,
I do. Yes. Shall I go ahead and launch in?
Please.
All right. Here we go. It's a hot, sweltering summer morning, July 3rd, 1863. The third and final day of the Battle of Gettysburg. We're behind Confederate lines, a little more than a mile west of the blood-soaked peach orchard, where a cannonball mangled Union General Dan Sickles' now amputated right leg yesterday. We're standing on the bank of the Marsh Creek's gentle waters. Before us is a 100-foot-long covered bridge, Sachs Covered Bridge, to be exact. It isn't but a decade old. The stone abutments are strong as ever, and the gable roof is picturesque, to say the least. That said, the recent war has taken its toll. The bridge's red paint is peeling from the clapboard sidings. But there's no time to stand about admiring the aesthetics of this well-crafted crossing. Soldiers are approaching. A young boy keeps time with a snare drum as a small group of gray-clad, rifle-carrying soldiers and their few horse-mounted commanding officers, one puffing calmly on his pipe, slowly advance forward. Just in front of them are three men. They too are wearing Confederate gray, but no weapons of war rest in their hands. No, their hands are in fact bound with coarse, thick rope that wraps around their wrists. The three men walk with less discipline, but nonetheless at an obedient, if not resigned, pace. The dull thud of the soldiers' boots echo as they pass us by the entrance to the covered bridge. But the echoing boots, the lonely drum, and the clop of the horse hooves come to a sudden stop once the party reaches the crossing's midpoint. What's said next? I can't say. An officer is reading a sentencing, yes, but the crime is unknown. Did these three men flee before the fight here at Gettysburg? Are they guilty of desertion? Have they been convicted of spying for the Union? These will be the most popular claims found in lore over the years, decades, and even centuries to come. But whatever their collective sin, the price they must pay is clear as the soldiers produce three long pieces of rope. With a hefty toss, each of the thick ropes fly into the air and over the beams that form the bridge's upper brace. Be it tied in advance or tied in this moment, one end of each of the three ropes now has the dreaded hangman's knot. Perhaps sacks are placed over the three sentenced men's heads. Then again, perhaps that is a luxury not to be had in the midst of a losing battle costing thousands of lives each day. Either way, the loop and its numerous accompanying coils are soon placed around each of the three necks, with the other end secured to the bridge's crisscross side brace beams. The condemned are then placed on the officers' horses, and then the officers lead their steeds away, giving each of these three convicted Confederates a short drop and a sudden stop. A day or two passes. Perhaps it's the 4th of July, the national holiday of this embattled, divided country. 77 years since those 13 collaborating colonies rejected the British crown. Or perhaps it's July 5th. Whatever the exact time and day, Union General George Meade's victorious forces are now pursuing those of the silver-haired and silver-bearded Confederate General Robert E. Lee. And as they do so, some of them find their way to Marsh Creek, to Sachs Covered Bridge. Looking up, the blue uniformed Northerners find three gray-clad bodies, stone cold, still dangling from the bridge's upper brace. Dressed in blue and gray, 50,000 Americans suffered grievous wounds, went missing, or were confirmed dead here at Gettysburg in the last 3 days. The dead are quite literally strewn across the once verdant fields of this formerly idyllic, small Pennsylvania town. But amid such anguish and death, Perhaps these 3 Confederates are among the most disquieted of souls, knowing they met their end not honorably facing their foe, but executed by their own. A century and a half passes, taking us right to our modern day. Sacks-covered bridge still spans Marsh Creek. With many a fresh coat, it's painted as red as the blood that so long ago stained these again calm and peaceful fields of Gettysburg. But while the swinging bodies have long since been removed, many a visitor, particularly those who come at night, have felt the presence of the 3 executed Confederates. Some have seen their ghosts. Some have proof, having captured otherworldly images with their cameras or phones that appear to have a human form. Some even swear they can smell the sweet smoke of Chesapeake tobacco, just as though the Confederate officer, possibly Robert E. Lee himself, were still there, standing right next to them on Sacks-covered bridge. But is any of this true? Well, to find out about that, you'll just have to make your way to Gettysburg and visit the bridge on a dark, moonless night yourself.
Oh, this is
Happy 4th of July, everybody.
no joke. This is what I love about your show is that not only is it informative, but you write it like historical fiction. Like
yes.
Manhunt is one of my favorite books about the search for John Wilkes Booth. Phenomenally written. And that's just like the verbiage of your podcast and like your story, but it paints a picture. And even though it is 3 people meeting their end in a horrible way, like the short stop or like the way you describe it in a way that it's not too gruesome, but it's also history. And we need to know like people were injured here.
Mm-hmm.
The place is haunted.
The freakiest thing of all is what man will do to themselves.
Yes. What we really did to each other. And
Absolutely.
just to think about this beautiful green field that's now littered with the dead of and like they say brother against brother. And man, have you ever been to Gettysburg?
I have been to Gettysburg. Yeah.
Tell me everything.
Oh my goodness. Well, so let me go to Gettysburg, but real quick before we do that, let me just say, as the historian that I am,
Please.
Few things that, because it's a ghost story, I was willing to embrace a little more creativity than I would on my own podcast, because you're welcome. You're welcome. So I have no source material for them sitting on horses. And how many people were there. So you may have noticed a lot of my perhaps and, but
I love that.
But that's like,
that's how you let people know, like, it's not fact, but this could have happened.
Yeah.
But the truth is we don't know all of those things,
Okay. Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed that. But again, just me. I have to
yes.
I love it.
You're like, I got to make sure they know that
be noted.
wasn't
Add a footnote.
history.
Add a footnote.
Exactly. Oh, you don't even want to know how many footnotes are on the scripts I write for my podcast. It's I have problems. But to Gettysburg, incredible. And, it's hard not to feel a connection with the past and imagine whether you're even into the supernatural or not. Just you can,
the energy
you feel
that
it.
comes
Yes.
from it. Yeah,
Gravity.
yeah.
Yes, of just knowing you're looking at, as I kind of brought out in the way I wrote that story, right? These gorgeous, peaceful, quiet, other than the tourists. And if you go at the right time of day, it's just a nature setting. It's you can find a beautiful, quiet corner, and there you are standing in front of a marker, in the memory of, you name it, unit, whether it be from the north, the south, and that scores of men died right there, right where you're standing. That all the peace you're feeling is completely contradictory to what this place was like, in 1863. Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's fascinating, too, to think of that in regards to time and just, we talk a lot about time and how it's just such a complicated concept to understand and a construct that we've developed, and like how much time really has passed, but like if you can still feel it, the energy remains because it can't be destroyed.
Right. And when you're there, you're like, I'm actually standing in the place where all of this really did happen.
Yeah.
And that's the magic of history, right? It transports you back to whether it's World War I, World War II, any of that, where we can't be there, but using all the materials and the research that you do, you can take us there with you.
And it doesn't suck. Well, it did suck that like thousands of people died.
Yeah, that does
but
suck.
the way
that
you
sucked a
portray
little,
it,
sure.
it's nice to hear you talk about
It's not the content, it's the delivery.
Yeah,
It doesn't
exactly.
suck. Some stuff does suck. Like, it's sad that happened. But when you were there, did you get any? I don't know. You sounds like you're more pragmatic and less into the spooky woo woo. But when you were there, did you have any feeling, or was it more of a feeling of solemnity and gravity and that graciousness of like being there?
Probably more the latter. I am a pretty pragmatic and, academic type, but
I am too. I'm the skeptic on this show, so I relate to this.
That said, I'm drinking out of my haunted mansion mug. And,
nice.
That's one of my favorite, happy places as a kid growing up in Southern California.
Oh, yeah.
I love Halloween. There's a reason I've got the Halloween special in there.
Yeah.
So, pragmatic as I am, I could also freak myself out watching a scary movie, as I'll do by myself in the dark, because I'm twisted like that. So I very much enjoy it. And it's a very thin line, I think, even for many very rational people, because we are designed, we're built to feel emotions, to connect, and that does transcend generations. And so, there's a magic there, regardless of, even for those who are like, oh, I don't believe in any of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, for sure. Well, as far as Gettysburg, we know that's one of the most famous places that in the paranormal world, people talk about, oh, it's haunted. And there's all the barracks, anything around there. There's been images taken, anything like that. Have there been any other historical places you've visited or you've talked about on your show that kind of have that rumor about it and that you were able to go and go like, I understand the energy here. It might not be ghosts, but it's the ghosts of history.
Ghost of history. You got to write that book, Professor.
It's on you.
I love it. That'll be the retirement project. That mixes my fun side with my academia. It'll be wonderful.
We'll pre-order it now.
Yes. Being out in the West, I'm just a few hours drive from Promontory Point, where the Transcontinental Railroad came together. And that's kind of sacred ground to me as well. It's a great achievement, but another thing that's going through my head, even if it's not right in that very location, when I'm standing there, I'm thinking about all the countless Irish and Chinese workers. And in Utah, even there were several thousand Mormon workers that were employed at the last minute. It's sad that there is an Irishman buried under every rail of the Transcontinental Railroad. That's, of course, an exaggeration, as my Irish ancestors have said. Never let the truth get in the way of a good story. So, we'll...
I heard that.
Yeah. Which, of course, I guess I do. That's the whole history thing. But just even if that's hyperbolic, thinking about, the deadly sacrifice to make that happen.
Yeah.
The Pony Express route here as well has a little bit of that vibe to it. Not that there were so many deaths, but just when you see these structures, and this is, I guess if I could connect back to Gettysburg for 1 second, or even the Transcontinental Railroad, National Park Services protects a lot of these locations.
Yeah.
And I know everyone thinks their thing is super important, so I'll caveat it, but oh my goodness, I'm so grateful for the NPS. And preserving it so that we can go these places, and it's still, in as much as it's possible, right? It looks like it did when that moment happened. It's been preserved. Fantastic guides as well. If I may, my buddy Ralph, he's a licensed battlefield guide at Gettysburg.
Oh, nice.
So
that's cool.
I'll just shout him out. I, of course, gave him a call before I came on, because I know
Ralph.
Gettysburg. Yes, thank you. And hi, Ralph. But the man lives, eats, breathes, dies for Gettysburg, right?
Wow. So the type that's out every weekend doing reenactments and things
weekend?
like that.
You think this is a weekend thing?
7 days.
Does he live at Gettysburg?
He was on the East Coast. He has moved to Gettysburg.
Wow.
And those are the types of people you have for these licensed battlefield guides. Look, I'm a professor, PhD, all that. You guys know that. I am more than glad to humbly submit as the student when I go to NPS sites, because these people have given their lives to this one location.
Yeah. National parks workers are valuable because it's that depth of knowledge in a very narrow thing that we have to have that, because we all do want to wander into this place and do so respectfully, and having that guide there is so
and to
valuable.
pass that information down, because if it doesn't, then at some point, everyone that knows about it themselves is gone.
Right.
So, to pass all that down. So it's not lost
and preserve it so
and
they
still
don't
respected.
pave over it and respect it. They pave it over and turn it to a Kmart or whatever. And you're like, well, this is where the Pony Express came. I kind of wanted to learn about history. It's fine. No worries. But it's tough for us, I think, in Dallas because it is a younger city. Texas is a younger country. And also just even
we're a state.
Well, I'm sorry.
We like to think that we're our own
that came out.
The emails are coming.
No,
the emails are coming, Heather.
Comically Texan, like to a caricature amount. So it's fine.
We're our own country.
The way that it slipped out so easily.
Yeah, I didn't like you wouldn't have stopped out.
I would not have stopped. And Christy was like, actually, see, but no, you're always on it. You got that ear. You got that professor ear. But I think it's hard for us as, the developers here tend to come and tear down history and build condos
Everything
on it.
It's just, even like homes from 20 years ago get bulldozed for, the newest, biggest thing to come up. So other than JFK, we don't have a lot that we've preserved around here.
If it's not preserved by the state parks department or the National Park Service, it's it will get run down. And you do see, I think there's now more, and maybe podcasts like yours really help that, where we listen to history, not just, wah, 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 because you got to get a grade for it, but diving into it as a story and being interested and acknowledge what we've done so that we're not doomed to repeat it in the future. We'll maybe be like, hey, wait, let's not just burn everything down and start over all the time and just pretend it never happened.
One of the many rewarding things I get interacting with fans is are those emails where they say, I never even realized this is 15 minutes from my house and I just listened to this episode on fill in the blank, wherever it is. Like the Brooklyn Bridge, for instance. I did a whole episode on that, and I've heard from a few New Yorkers like, oh my gosh, I just always saw that as that old bridge that's there. I had no idea the blood, sweat, tears, and death involved in what a scientific marvel it was to even forward this incredible,
It makes you view your city or your country or
hell yeah
in a different way, And now when those people drive over that bridge, they have a new appreciation for it. Yeah.
And again, when you go to let's tear this down, it's no, this is an engineering marvel, and we need to restore it, respect it.
And the more people know, the more people will fight to prevent that from happening.
So, Gettysburg was owned. We were planning to talk about this, so forgive me for being a little vague, but a part of what is now the battlefield was owned at some point by a electric rail company, and they plan to run lines through that. And the government stepped in. I think they might have even invoked eminent domain in that situation.
Wow.
And they're like, we're going to preserve this. This is hollowed ground.
It's one thing for industry. We want it to be a prosperous nation.
Infrastructure is crucial.
But you can't literally railroad history. And it's and then if that happens, then what is left? If we don't have the National Park Service, if we don't have a government that gives a shit about something like that, then you are just a big ass concrete jungle. And it's when was everything built? Oh, it doesn't matter because it's just concrete that gets poured.
We'll just redo it in a few years.
I think that you help ascribe meaning to these sacred sites where it is a large amount of loss, whether it's Gettysburg or any number of the locations you've talked about.
So thank you for your service.
Thank you for what you do. And I know you like to interact with fans. You're going to be interacting with some fans anytime soon, maybe not from Utah, but on the road.
Yes, in fact, I am about to kick off a national tour. So
that's so exciting.
Yes, very much looking forward to that. We start in August in Loveland, Colorado, and we'll be going monthly to a different state from then through April at least of next year. More dates are being added. So, California. We're heading to Pennsylvania, not too far from Gettysburg. Arizona's in there. But you can look up all the dates and locations and more that will be added on my website, htdspodcast.com. Just look for the tour tab and there you go.
That's awesome. Nice. Are you going to do a city or state specific topic at each location?
So I actually took a year to write a one-man stage show.
This is amazing.
That's incredible.
That's such a feat.
Thank
that's an accomplishment.
Think of it as an extremely long podcast episode. 100 minutes is the runtime, so it's 2 acts. 100 years of U.S. history in 100 minutes. I go from the Revolution through the Civil War. Of course, Gettysburg gets a little mention in there. And, I do my thing where I go in deep for a story, and then we move quickly, and I then go deep again, so that, we're covering a lot of space and time, but we're also, connecting with historical figures. And the title of this show specifically is The Unlikely Union. The story is the Union coming together and the struggles. They didn't just snap together. The founding fathers didn't just all agree and happily, do their thing, but it was a fight to come together. It was a fight to stay together, and taking us through the paces on that very meaningful struggle that has built the United States.
This sounds are you coming to Texas?
Yeah, when are you coming to Dallas?
Dallas isn't on the books yet, but I promise you. I specifically asked Boston get added. So
okay,
awesome. I'm working on
we
that
will
one.
be there. That sounds incredible.
That's awesome.
What a interesting, fun night.
Yeah, that you get something out of it. It's like you're being, again, it's just the same call to your podcast is like entertaining, but also you now know something a little bit more than you didn't know before. And it's not like you're going to
I will know a lot more, probably 90% more than I already
I just meant for me, retention wise, I'm I listened to a full hour of this. I'll tell you 3 facts I learned just because it's so every word is meaningful in your podcast. You don't waste words or mince words. And so it's like I can't even take all this in. It's like, in the Matrix when they plug the thing into your brain. But for real, you get something out of it. It's a great night. So we're sending everybody to your website, htdspodcast.com. Is that where they can find you if they want more?
Yeah. And of course, anything else they're interested in, and from the podcast to, the other things that are coming. So
yeah. And on socials, are you at HTPS?
HTDS podcast on Twitter, Instagram. I think we didn't get that consistent, but we're on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. We'll tag you. It'll be great.
We'll tag you. Well, thank you, Professor. It's up to you to tell us that class is adjourned. I think.
Yes.
Well, yes.
Thanks for being with us.
Class is adjourned, and thanks for letting me tell a story.
Thank you for joining us. This was great.
A+.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
No curve.
Oh, no, I'm truly complimented.